Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of HSP TV. I am your host, Barbara, and today I am joined by the fabulous James Kawainui. It's always a challenge, but I nailed it the second time. And today we are going to talk about energy hygiene. And for those of you who have no clue what that's about, I'm going to give some hints like boundaries and buffer zone and self-care. These are all elements of energy hygiene, and the rest you will have to stay tuned to our fabulous talk to find out. But I have no doubt that you will stay here. So thank you, James, for being here today. And thank you for being available and wanting to talk to me about this awesome topic.
It's a topic that I love, and I'm grateful for being here. And I have to tell you, when I came up with the term energy hygiene, this is probably about 6 or 7 years ago, my wife looked at me and she said, "It's not sexy enough."
Exactly.
And I said, well, how can you make taking care of yourself any more sexy than that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we talk about energy hygiene, we're talking about, for me, it's protocols and tools to
Mm-hmm.
help us stay solid and inside of ourselves, and there's so many different levels inside of that, and we'll see how many we get to talk about today.
Yes, I'm very much looking forward to it. But it does sound, and at the end I can tell you for sure, but it sounded a little bit similar to a talk I had with Robin. We called it the spiritual tool belt. So it might be that there are a lot of connections there. That might be just a little bit more sexy than hygiene, but we are going to find out. So you already shared that it's about self-care. It's about taking really good care of ourselves and our own energy, so that we are in control of our vibration and so that we can ultimately manifest the life that we want, right?
Exactly. And this is what I tell people. And I'm looking for my prop because I have a prop. And this is what I tell people about what is normally happening with them. We're walking through life and everybody's got a plug in their hand and they're looking for somebody to help make them feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're high energy, and especially if you're a practitioner, people are coming to you and you have to realize that they're coming with a plug because what they haven't been able to figure out how to build their own energy field. And
Mm-hmm.
so, when we talk about energy vampires and stuff like that, that's what we're talking about. Other people that are looking for other people to help them feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yes.
part of energy hygiene is about recognizing that as you move through your life, because when you are not aware of that, you can get into, well, that's where it's, and I'm feels like I'm jumping around, but I'm not. When a practitioner comes to me and they say, I'm so tired at the end of the day that all I want to do is go home and hide from the world. And that's kind of, for me, is a red flag, because what I'm realizing is that they're taking on the energy of the people that they're working on, or you're taking the energy on of the people that are around you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So for everybody, think about it like this. Ever walked into a room, or ever walked into an event, or ever walked into in a space, even if it's just a store, the grocery store or a coffee shop, right? And you walk in and you immediately are on guard. You don't
Mm-hmm.
understand why, but you immediately are on guard and you're looking around, or you walk into a space or you meet people and you automatically feel like they're lifelong friends.
Or the other way around. Ooh, I don't
Or
like you.
I don't like you, I don't trust you. Exactly. Either way, right? What's happening unconsciously is that you're actually reading other people's energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so becoming more aware of it will help us as we move through the world be able to navigate the world easier.
Hmm. And you have a very good point there, because I remember one time I was meeting the best friend of a really good friend of mine for the first time. And we were going to go out with the three of us, just a girls' night out. And the moment I met her, I had this overwhelming sense of, ooh, mm, right? But my mind told me, oh, don't be silly. You have not met this girl, you don't know her. How can you feel this? She is the best friend of a really good friend of yours. So, how bad can it be? And you just open yourself up and you give people a chance, because that's the way I've been raised by my parents, sort of conditioning by society, conditioning by
Hmm.
the family system. So I stepped over myself and I was being kind and nice to this new girl, because it was the first time I was meeting her. And then sometime later, I found out that she was feeling very threatened by me, and she was thinking that I was going to steal our mutual friend. And she was being really mean to me behind my back, saying mean things and doing mean stuff, and with the goal of sort of stealing our mutual friend only for her and making her end our friendship together, which eventually also happened. But the point of the story is that a lot of people that come into my practice, and you probably also come into contact with a lot of people like that feel they feel something, they are aware of it, but then they push it under the rug, they pretend it's not there, or they sort of make it lighter or less heavy, or justify it, or all of these means, usually based on, well, the things that they have learned from their family system, right?
There's a couple points that you made that are really important. Is one, in that moment, you didn't trust your gut instinct. Your intuition was spot on, and you questioned it. And
Yes.
part of us understanding and creating energetic boundaries, right? And is learning to trust that instinct when you feel that energy, or you feel, or you get that hit, or that information, or that awareness, is to pay attention to that, because there's a part of you that's way more aware than the conscious you, that is sending you messages.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're not listening to it, then you're basically not paying attention to your intuition. And then there was another piece that you talked about that was in there, and you're right. Society teaches us to avoid confrontation, and
Yes.
so we make nice, so we push it under the rug, or we say, "Oh, I'm going to give them a chance," and I'm one of those people that give people way more chances than I should,
Yeah.
because in inherently what we want to do is be able to trust people, right?
Yes.
And when I do that, though, I take my sense or my instinct and I put it aside, and I say, I'm not going to listen to that, because sometimes you think that you're being overreactive. That's one way to look at it, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And it's also part of, well, it's not being taught in school. We are not being taught what is intuition, how can it manifest itself, and especially now that it's a very valuable tool, and that you would be wise to listen to it and to consider it, and to see what it's trying to tell you, or how it can be applied in the situation that you're facing or are active in at that moment. And we just haven't learned that, but we do indeed learn conflict avoidance behavior, especially as highly sensitive people. We love harmony. We try to avoid conflict. We are people pleasers. When we are not in our right energy, we don't stick up for ourselves. And we are usually also very disconnected from our bodies. So all of these factors make it really difficult to live, to hear your intuition, to listen to your intuition, to trust in your intuition, and to act upon what your intuition is telling you.
Yeah, people pleasers are constantly giving their energy away.
Yes.
in order, and that's a key right there, because I'm giving my energy away, or I'm constantly reacting to something that's happening outside of me. And when I talk to people about it, that I say, every time you react emotionally to something that's happening outside of you, what you're literally doing is giving your energy away. You're giving your energy to whatever it is that is. And when people learn that they can push your buttons and get your energy, then they will constantly do it.
Yes.
And to, and yeah, there's all the different pieces about feeling guilt and shame, about taking care of ourselves and feeling selfish and everything else like that. And to all of that, I'm just going to say to you right now, stop it. Okay? This is about self-care, because every time you take care of yourself, every time you're able to manage your energy, what you're doing is you're saying to unconsciously to yourself, I care about me so much that I would do this for myself. And that's not being selfish. That's actually being empowering.
Mhm. But you're
Okay.
touching upon something very important there, because a lot of my clients tell me, but when I think about myself, I'm being selfish, I'm being egoistical, and that's frowned upon. I cannot be egoistical. I cannot place myself first.
But
Or
that's a shadow side of that. And there's always going to be the shadow side of it. But the other side of it, because when I take care of myself, I'm not being arrogant, right? When I'm taking care of myself, I am saying I am important too. Where's my sign? I have a sign that I hang that is always here.
But
And
that's it, right? Because when you're truly
yeah,
being egoistical, then you're thinking only about yourself
yeah,
while
and that's not it.
hurting other
Yeah.
people. But thinking about yourself in the sense of making sure that your cup is full first, because you cannot pour from an empty cup.
Mhm.
That's, the whole enchilada. That's where it's about. Because if you don't make sure that you are in the right energy, that you're feeling really great, that you're in a kind, loving type of energy, then you cannot be there for other people.
No. Well, you can, but one, it doesn't last long term, and two, it can have very serious side effects. Excuse me.
Bless
Oh,
you.
sorry about that. So when we talk about energy and we talk about energy hygiene, it's about having now the tools, having protocols to start to put things in place to notice what's happening. Think about it this way. Right now, what's happening with most people is they're moving through their lives, but they don't have a sense of who they are, because they're constantly feeling everything else around them.
Mhm.
And it makes sense. From a survival standpoint, I'm constantly monitoring what's happening around me. But the monitoring is the way that I monitor is feel, 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 right? And
Yes.
there's a shift inside of that, because what happens is, if I'm constantly feeling everything, then can I tell the difference between what I'm feeling and what is out here, right? And
Mhm.
so when we start talking about boundaries, is that space where I create a space between, energetically, between myself and everything that's around me.
Mhm.
And the more I can do that, what happens is I start to become, when we can do this, and this may sound strange to people, but the more you can do this, the more aware you become of your surroundings and the people around you, because you're not constantly falling into their emotional traps. Does
Yes.
that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's actually something that I'm teaching my clients. It acts sort of like a buffer zone. It's and you can make it. I always say, when you are around people that you trust, that have earned your trust, that are maybe your partner or your children or your parents, if you're having a great bond with them, then you can just sort of bring in your energy field, and you can make the buffer a bit smaller, so that you are in better contact with the people that are important to you. But when you are in unfamiliar surroundings, or when you're going grocery shopping on a Saturday when everybody is doing grocery shopping, then you would love to have your energy field descend the boundaries of it further out, so that
Yeah.
there's more of a buffer between you and everybody else's stress, energy, emotions, and everything that's going on with other people, especially as a highly sensitive empath person that tends to take over like a sponge everything that's
Right.
around you when you don't protect it.
It's you, and you're absolutely right. It's the place where we stop being a sponge for all of that. And when it becomes empowering is when I can choose who I let in and not let in. And
Yes.
there's times when we may not even let our partners or our children in,
Mm-hmm.
because there are spaces and times where we need that space for ourselves. And as much as I love you, you're here, not here. And when I talk about that, that's what I talk about. You know, Hawaiians talk about it, the concept in Hawaiian culture is called an aka, and an aka is a cord, right? So we talk about cords, and people talk about cords all the time, but
Yes.
in Hawaiian culture, we call it an aka, and an aka is a cord, and a cord, that aka is the connection with all the relationships that I have. And we create those akas because the connections we make is us moving to the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that those akas stay connected or the door is open constantly.
No.
And so it's about understanding that. And the thing about it is some akas are very temporary. You know, I smile at somebody in a grocery store, or I meet somebody as I'm standing in line, or you know, I'm at the coffee shop and something happens, and those are very temporary akas. And then we have akas with our clients, and then we have akas with our, you know, acquaintances and friends, and those akas get stronger and stronger, right? And
Yeah.
then we have the akas that we have in family. And even if I'm not with my family, and even if I don't have a relationship with my family, that aka still exists. That connection still exists.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that connection means it's no different than a power cord, right? So an electrical cord,
Mm-hmm.
because energy is passing through it from
Mm-hmm.
one person to the other, either way,
Yes.
right? And so part of energy hygiene and part of taking care of yourself is knowing when. I tell people sometimes when they're talking about that, I said, you know, that connection that you have, you see that connection, and we go into, in some ways, that we go into a meditation where they see the connections that they have with people. And I say, can you see how energetically that connection may be out of alignment or out of integrity? Can you see how energy is going more one way, which is from you to them, and very little from them to you? And I said, and so when they reach out for that energy, and so I tell, you know what I tell people, I said, inside those connections that you have, I want you to put a steel door with a lock in it. The lock is only on your side, which means that you control how and when you
Mm-hmm.
interact, or if you interact.
Yeah.
And then, and
Exactly.
and and then I've worked with people, and I've actually seen this, which is the first time I saw that this is really bizarre. And I said this to the woman I was working with. I said, my goodness, you have so many open doors behind you that you're being drained by all your past relationships. And when I looked at her, it this is exactly what it saw, like I saw. It's like attached to her back were all of these cords going into her past, all of these cords. Like, I mean, it was full, and
Mm.
and there were so many cords, and she was trying so hard to get forward that she was leaning forward, and I could see her leaning forward with all of these cords attached to her back.
That
And I
kept pulling
said,
her back.
no wonder you can't get ahead. No wonder you keep getting pulled back into these relationships that you don't want, because you haven't cut all those cords, right?
Mm.
And that's
Yes.
and that's just another aspect of creating boundaries. That's another aspect of
Yes.
energy hygiene, is not keeping those doors to old relationships open
Mm-hmm.
after those relationships are done.
Yes. I totally agree. Cord cutting is indeed one of the techniques that I teach in the spiritual tool belt. So yeah, I completely get it. And what I also see is, especially with highly sensitive people, empath people, is that we let everything basically go straight to our heart. What I mean by that is when we are at the supermarket and the cash register girl is having an off day and is being rude or otherwise mean, then that can, pardon my French, fuck up our entire day. And we can keep going over and feeling hurt and feeling all of these emotions of someone like that just being nasty to you. And the same thing happens when your partner is doing something or when your client is doing something. So there is no difference for a lot of people between people that you love and that are close or people that should be farther away and should not have that much of an impact on your inner world. Everybody has the same type of effect and impact on your inner world. So I usually draw them a heart, which is us, and then circles around it. And I say, people like the cash register girl, she should be in the far outer circle. And she should not be allowed to have an arrow that shoots straight into your heart with her negative energy and the things that are happening. And she should not be able to be allowed to penetrate that far. Your boundaries, is not in place. Your shield is not strong enough.
We're going to talk about shield. I'm going to write a note. I'm going to write myself a note about that. Okay. Shield and protection. We're going to talk about that. Okay.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about this, and this is going to sound very controversial to all you empaths and all you highly sensitive people out there. Okay. But I'm going to say this to you, and I really want you to take this in. And I'm going to swear. Who fucking made you responsible for everybody's emotions?
Yes.
And that's what you're doing when you're walking through the world. You've made it your personal responsibility to feel everybody's emotions. And I'm going to say this, stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It is not your responsibility to make other people happy. It is not your responsibility to fix other people's lives. It is not your responsibility to have to take care of other people. That's their responsibility. And guess what? They are where they are in their lives because of the choices that they made.
Yes.
That's not your fault. That is not your fault. So you may not like this, but I'm going to say, stop it. Stop thinking that you have to fix the fucking world, because you don't.
Yes.
Okay.
That was one of the things I needed to learn, along with also what other people think of me is none of my business.
It's none of my business. Because there's a saying in the States, and I don't know if they have the same saying everywhere else, but they said opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one.
Yes, but that's very true.
Right? And so everybody's going to have an opinion of who we are. Everybody's going to have an opinion of something else. That doesn't mean that you have to respond or react to it, or it doesn't mean that you have to do anything about it. What
Or
if
let
all
it
you did,
influence your inner world. That's also not the way it's supposed to be.
exactly. So what if you looked at that cashier that's really having a bad day, and you just look at her, and then instead of taking on her energy, you look at her and you go, my goodness, you've had a really bad day, haven't you? I don't know all the things that have happened to you, but I do know that I don't need to experience that with you. So I'm going to give that energy back to you. I'm not even going to consider taking it on, because it's not my responsibility.
Yes.
And what would happen if you started looking at the relationships in your lives and you start deciding that for all of those different people, and especially for the people that you don't know?
Mm-hmm.
Stop
Yes.
thinking that you're responsible for everybody else, because you're not.
No.
If, as a practitioner, right, that changes when somebody says, I could really use your help. Then it changes. Then you open your awareness to whoever that is, so that you can understand their energy. And this is a really good point. And I know you know this, but we're going to talk about this anyway. The difference between sympathy and empathy.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
Sympathy is I feel your pain. Empathy is I understand your pain. So all
Mm-hmm.
you empaths that are out there that are saying that you're getting bombarded by everybody, you're not an empath. You're actually feeling sympathy for people.
Yes.
Okay? Because as soon as you say, I feel your pain, guess what? You just made it your own. And so
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have the experience. Now, think about that. What happens when you say, I understand your pain, or I understand what you're going through?
Mm-hmm. A whole different
E-
energy.
I was going to say, even energetically, just then when I said that, you noticed the shift and the change inside of it, right?
Yes.
Because what it did, it took people and it went, oh, got it. You're here, not here,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when you're here, it changes it changes how I relate to you, because now I don't have to feel everything that you're feeling. I can acknowledge that wherever you are in your life, and I can come to an acceptance of what that is. But I definitely do not have to have the experience that you're having. Thank you very much.
And it's actually making you a better practitioner when you can empathize with your clients, but not sympathize. Because when you sympathize, especially when you sympathize too
You
much,
go like
you're
this. You
rendering
go.
yourself ineffective. You're blocking your own energy, you're blocking your helpfulness, and whatever it is that you can do for someone.
But there's an unconscious thing that's happening, and that's why we do this, okay? Because the reality is that most of our relationships are built on pain.
Yes.
Okay, most of our relationships are built on pain and the emotion of that pain. So when you say I feel your pain, unconsciously what's happening is your brain is filing through all your files and all your memories to come up with the feeling of what they're talking about, so that you can go, oh, I feel that. Oh, I know what that feels like. Oh, I know when this happened to me. And then we get into this place. And it's not that you're better, but when you're sitting inside of a place of empathy, what happens is you see past the person, and you can see maybe what's happening with their lives, and you can see what's going on, and they may show up to a session and they may be angry or sad or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking at that and going, okay, let me see past where they are to see, so I can understand better what may have happened,
Mm-hmm.
which then helps me understand how I might be able to help them
Exactly.
move through this, right?
Exactly.
And, and so when we talk about energy hygiene, we're talking about holding space for other people in a completely different way.
Exactly, because what
And
happens when you sympathize is that your pain body gets triggered. Your
right,
Eckhart Tolle talks about the pain body, so I'm not really going to go dive into it. If you want to know more about it, listen to him. But
yeah,
basically, we have this pain body of all our shared experiences and all our pains. And whenever something happens in our lives that is remotely similar to something we've already stored in our pain body, then autopilot programs fire off with how we respond to it,
survival
how we feel
programs.
to it.
They're
Exactly.
survival programs. Yeah,
And so
yeah.
you are triggering your own survival programs by sympathizing with someone. And that sort of puts you in a victim position instead of having the practitioner more bird's eye perspective where you can empathize, but indeed look further so that you can help and guide. So I love that you're talking about this because it's a very, very important distinction.
Once you learn that whatever you're experiencing or feeling in that moment doesn't belong to you, then you don't even have to know who it's coming from. Just realize that it doesn't belong to you and say, I love you. I understand this is happening for you. And I know I don't need to experience this. So I'm going to give this back to you.
Mhm.
This is an important part of that. I can't just throw it back in you and say, I don't want your shit and I don't want to feel whatever you're feeling, because you're doing it from a negative place,
Yes.
right? And so the only way it goes back where it doesn't come back towards you is you do it through love. You may not be able to feel unconditional love, but in that moment, and to be able to look at that and realize, I don't need to do this with you. I am not going to do this with you. I love you and I give this back to you.
Mhm.
Feel
Yes.
what that feels like, because what happens is you're giving it back without attachment. And And in some ways, what you're doing is you're cutting the aka, you're cutting the cord, so there's no comeback.
Yes,
There's nothing coming back towards you, right?
exactly.
If you're walking through your day and all of a sudden your energy changes, like you walk or you step into a room and all of a sudden you feel sad, or you just, sometimes when we travel, my wife and I, we feel it in the neighborhood, like from street to street in a city or in a town.
Mhm.
We feel the energy change, and we'll look at each other and says, wow, energy just changed. What happened? So we're aware enough between ourselves that we talk about that, right? When you notice that, or if you notice that your energy changes really quickly, like you think about somebody in your mind and your energy changes, right?
Yes.
In that moment, what you did is you just took that energy on.
Hmm.
So sometimes you don't have the awareness, but you just notice that your emotional state changes or your energy changes.
Yes,
To
this
be able
happened
to
a lot when I was a child.
stop in that moment and go, wait a minute, something just changed. Is that mine or is that somebody else's?
That is one of the most important questions I indeed teach my clients, to distinguish between what's theirs and what's somebody else's. Because when I was a child, I didn't know I was able to feel anybody else's pain as if it was my own. I
We didn't
assumed,
realize we were doing it.
yeah, I assumed I'm feeling it, so it must be mine. But then when people asked me, why are you crying? I was not able to answer that question because it was not mine. And that's usually how you can distinguish between, is something mine or is it somebody else's? Because if it's yours, you know where
It
it's
it
coming from.
it stays. The way that I describe it is it stays, like I feel it on me. And when I recognize it or realize when I ask the question that is not mine, it almost, I'm just doing it this way, it goes like this, and it's almost like I separate from it, I create a space, a buffer zone between it, right?
Yes,
And then I
exactly.
go, oh, wait a minute, I'm feeling something else. Got it. Again, here you go. Let me give this back to you, right? So
Exactly.
so these are all just kind of things to just notice. And you might think, oh my gosh, this sounds like hard work. And the thing about it is, the more you do it, the easier it'll get,
Yes.
until it becomes almost automatic, because
Yes.
you move to your world and you'll feel that. Now, I don't know how much time we get, but there's a couple things more that I want to be able to talk about. So you tell me, how much time do we have left? Do we have
We
time?
have about 10 minutes. So I indeed wanted to say, up until now, we've mostly talked about what happens when we are not having proper energy hygiene and the effects that we can notice. So maybe it's a good idea to go more towards things that we can do to ensure a good energy hygiene, like shielding, for instance.
Very good point, and I'm really glad that you brought that up. Okay. We talk about shielding, we talk about armor, we talk about protection, right? And
Yes.
in its own way, it makes sense. I want to create this space between myself and other people, right? On an unconscious level, it's really good to understand the power of words, because when I say protect or shield or armor, even though there is a positive aspect to it, that I'm wanting to create the space for myself, on an unconscious level, it automatically tells my brain that I'm in danger.
Yes.
So it's even maybe just changing the word. And so what I want to create is a buffer between myself and other people, or I want to insulate myself from other people. Because you think about insulation, right? So I'm going to bring my cord back here again. When my cord is plugged in to electricity, right, I can hold on to it. There is definitely electricity running through this cord, but I can hold on to that cord because there's an insulation. The rubber is the insulation around it, right? So think about yourself in that way. So you're inside here, you're the power and the energy that's running through this cord, and there's an insulation. And that's the space, the buffer zone that we create around ourselves. And even just the thought of that and looking at that, going, I'm just going to create this space, because the more you can do that, what literally happens is it's almost as if there's this energy around you, and whatever energy comes towards you, because there's this buffer zone, this, I call it resonant energy, my energy. And it hits that field of my energy. And because it's so strong and I can hold that space for myself, the energy goes like this and it goes around me. So instead of energy coming into me, like you were talking about, going straight into your heart, as I create this buffer zone of energy, it goes around me.
Yes.
Right. And there are different ways to be able to do that. I remember before when I first learned this, somebody taught me this, and it was like, take a red scarf and kind of wrap yourself up like a mummy. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then there was the other way where you would put on a wetsuit, because a wetsuit was rubber, and I would put on my wetsuit with all my mirrors facing outwards so that any energy
Yes.
came was reflected back.
Yeah.
And those work. And so I want to teach you guys
Similar
something.
ones, indeed, with the gold thread that you need to wrap around yourself,
All of
or
that,
the
right?
cloak.
Oh, the cloak, yeah. So let's play with this, and I'm going to show you something that it'll take about 3 minutes. Okay.
Very cool.
So I know that you can't see us, and I know that I can't see you, but I'm just going to say, close your eyes for a few seconds. Okay. Take a deep breath. Come into your center, right? Letting go of everything else, letting go of all the things that we've talked about, letting go of everything that's happening in your day, breathing in this life force energy that is strengthening and empowering you. Think about making that connection to the divine, making that connection to your higher self. And as you breathe in that connection. And as you breathe out, you let go of everything and everyone that's around you. Notice how your energy very quickly comes into your center. Notice how you feel yourself dropping back into your body. And that's a good indication that I'm in my present moment inside of my physical form, inside of my energetic form. Now, in your mind's eye, right in front of you, is a very large quartz crystal egg. And so how large is it? It's actually taller than you are. And if you were to put your hands on your hips with your elbows pointing out to the side, that's how big your egg is. So take a few seconds with your awareness and just kind of see and feel that crystal egg that's about arm's length in front of you. So just right in front of you. And you probably wouldn't even notice it, except that it has this shimmering edges to it, because it's clear quartz crystal, which means that you can see right through it, just like looking through a window, right? Now, when you're ready, take 2 steps and step right into the center of that crystal. Feel yourself walk to the membrane. Feel now that clear quartz crystal all around you. And there's room to move. So you can move around and you can feel what it feels like. Take a few seconds to notice if anything changed and what feels different, if anything feels different. When I do this with people, most people experience a quietness that shows up. There's this almost like this calming that happens. Some people feel really happy, or they feel enlivened when they step inside of their egg. And I'm going to say this to you, what you're feeling is what other people feel, is how other people feel you. And that's what you're constantly radiating, emanating out into the world. But what you're doing is you're creating this space inside of this beautiful quartz crystal egg that says, this is my space and my space only, and nobody is allowed inside. And then just to play around, it's like, take your hand or your awareness and kind of go and move away from you till you feel your hand or your awareness move outside the egg. Feel the difference in the energy that's outside, and then slowly bring your hand back in until you feel yourself inside your egg again. It's when I got the download for this is about 10 years ago, and then the team gave me the download and they said, share this with everybody. And I do. I share it with everybody that I come in contact with, everybody that comes to work with me. it's one of the first concepts that we talk about.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you create this space around yourself, and you got to think, so the properties of pure quartz crystal, right? Of clear quartz crystal, right? Amplifies, stores, and transmits energy. So think about your crystal egg storing your energy. Think about your crystal egg accelerating or amplifying your energy. And then when you choose to share your energy, then you share your energy. And so the energy is always going outwards. And any energy that you feel around you will start to feel, you'll feel it come, and then it's almost, this is the easiest analogy I have. You can drive down the road when it's raining, and the rain hits your windscreen, the rain hits the windshield, right? And the wipers are going. And you know it's raining outside, but you're not wet because your car is holding this field of energy around you so that you don't get wet. You can hear the water splashing up underneath the car. You can see the drip, the droplets of water going by on your window, but you're dry, right? Think about that every time you step into your egg. And then I tell people, wherever you go from now on, you slide into this egg in the morning before you get up. You check it before you have a meeting. If you're going to talk to somebody on the phone, you check in and you see where your egg is. And you'll get to the point of you'll be able to go, my egg there? No, let me step in it. Boom.
Exactly. It's indeed a similar concept is one of the things that I also teach. It's so important to know about these techniques because they will allow you to master your energy and to keep everything the way it feels right for you.
And decide when and how you use it.
Exactly.
That's the key, and that's why we look at this, and that's why we practice this, because then you become empowered because you are, let's say it this way, you become more sovereign inside yourself because you are in control or you are aware of how and when you use your energy. That's energy hygiene.
Exactly. Oh, I've been so loving this talk, and thank you so much for sharing this amazing exercise that I think will be really valuable for everybody that's watching and listening here to today's episode. So if you are, then it would mean the world to us if you would hit the subscribe button and if you would share this episode with the people that you know on social media, because if it was valuable to you, the chances are very high that it's also valuable to the people that you know, and you would be doing them a great service by sharing this. And I would also love it if you could leave your key takeaway underneath this video. What's the key takeaway that you've gotten from my talk with James here today? I can also
Barbara, I want to offer people something if I can. I'm just going to interrupt, and I apologize for interrupting. I will share with you a link, a meditation that I created for the crystal egg that if you can attach it to the show notes, people can just download the meditation. How's that?
Yes, that will be perfect. I was actually going towards that, seeing if how can people contact you, and if you have something that you would want to share with them, then tell them how to find it. So you jumped the gun, but no problem. I'll make sure that the link to your wonderful meditation is in the show notes, along with any means of how people can contact you, like maybe your website or your social media profile, or however you want people to reach out to you, so that when people feel inspired, they know how to reach you.
Perfect. Listen, I had so much fun. You and I have talked like on several occasions now, and it's like when I sit with you, I feel, oh my God, we can talk all day.
Yes. Exactly.
So
It's always
I'm grateful.
nice.
So I'm grateful. Thank you.
Me too. And that's what I'm finding more and more. It's when you become more and more yourself, you start connecting with wonderful kindred spirits with whom you can have wonderful day-lasting conversations that hopefully inspire other people that needed to hear it. So thank you so much for being here, James, for talking about this very important topic. And thank you, watcher, viewer, listener, for also being here, for your support for this channel, for your support for this video, and for James in particular. And I hope to talk to you on another occasion, James, and I hope to talk to you again next week, viewer and listener. And for now, I wish you an amazing rest of your day.
Aloha.
Aloha.